It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Your home for the best sports radio for your afternoon drive is right here. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The Timberwolves evened up their series with the Spurs last night, getting a win in Minneapolis, 114-109. Let's talk about it. Joining us now, he covers the Timberwolves for Locked On Timberwolves. He's Ben Beecken with us here on Jake and Ben. What's going on, Ben?
Hey, Ben.
Hey, how are you guys?
I'm doing well. We're doing well. Let me ask you, how are the Timberwolves feeling after this win? It's got to be nice going back to San Antonio tied 2-2, but that was a pretty dicey performance.
It was, and certainly the Victor Wembanyama ejection in the second quarter kind of greased the wheels for that one. And even still, I mean, the Wolves were up a bucket when Wemby was ejected, and we're up, I think, 4 at halftime. But they were down 8 points with 6 minutes left in this game, 7 minutes left in this game to a Wemby-less Spurs team. So it was a little bit dicey. Then they go up multiple possessions, and they have a couple of, issues inbounding the ball in the backcourt. It's a one-possession game with 30 seconds left. And so certainly not how you'd want to – it felt a lot more like a Monday in January game for the Timberwolves than you'd like basically the season on the line to feel like. But Anthony Edwards did Anthony Edwards stuff, and he was the biggest reason for the win. And obviously – they won game one, which was also only a one possession win. Were blown out in game two, lost a close one in game three, and then won a close one in which Wemby only played a quarter and a half. So yeah, I mean, there hasn't been a really good, solid wire to wire win. In fact, they haven't led by double digits at all in the first 4 games. So certainly different feeling than the first round Denver series. But a win is a win is a win, especially this time of year. And now you just got to win 2 of the next 3. Obviously, 2 of the next 3 being in San Antonio, and that's much easier said than done. But they've given themselves a shot to pull off the upset for the series.
I find it ludicrous that Wemby wasn't suspended for at least a game. I mean, that was one of the worst elbows I think we've seen. Ben and I were trying to go through recent memory bad elbows in the NBA. Do you have any thoughts on the punishment?
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised. I mean, I think you could have made an argument. I said this on Lockdown Wolves on today's episode. I think you easily could have made an argument for 1 game. I think you could have made an argument for 0 games. Reportedly, the lack of a history with Wemby played into the decision, so I get that. I understand. I hadn't thought about this at the time, but apparently because he was ejected so early in the game, the NBA may have looked at that and been like, he basically was suspended for half a game already. I don't want to get too worked up about it because, look, I think the Wolves want to beat the Spurs fair and square, and nobody wants to be like, obviously, they'll take it if Wemby's out, but it's like, let's just, if we're going to beat them, let's do it with their best guys on the court. And as we've seen all season with this Wolves team, if your listeners haven't watched a ton of Timberwolves games, the Wolves play to their competition, and whatever you expect is going to happen is usually not what's going to happen. And so sure enough, the Wolves struggled more when Wemby left the game. Now, part of that is, he leaves mid-game, and so your game plan changes on the fly. It's a completely different Spurs offensive attack. You attack the Spurs differently on the other end of the floor with no Wemby. And now it's right back to what you expected for the series. Obviously, Wemby's the top 6 player in the league, so, in theory, it should be easier without him. But with this Wolves team, I don't know that that's necessarily the case. But, yeah, I was a little bit surprised. I was surprised there wasn't no suspension, but here's a $50,000 fine. And apparently there was no additional fine on top of what you already get for being ejected for a flagrant. So a little bit surprised. And it certainly, I think it can be a slippery slope here in the playoffs if they're going to allow certain physicality and then, minimal punishments for retaliation. I don't know. These teams, it's not to the level of Wolves Nuggets hatred, but I think things could get a little dicey here if the officials allow that to happen. So who knows? Maybe we get a lot of quick whistles in Game 5 and things don't get chippy.
I was not giving the Timberwolves much of a chance in this series before Game 1 because I didn't know how healthy Anthony Edwards was going to be. Now he's scoring what it was, 16 points in the fourth quarter, and it seems like he's going to be reliable at least for these next 3 games. So how do you think they're feeling about being in a series 2-2? Now it's best of 3. No, they don't have home court advantage, but clearly they're frustrating Victor Wembanyama. They have things that are working for them.
Yeah, I think Ant's the biggest thing. I think you hit it on the head. Coming in, I did pick the Timberwolves in 7 because the Wolves did play the Spurs well in the regular season. They won 2 out of 3, and Wemby played in 2 of those 3 games. And the Spurs are incredible. And I just kind of figured baked in Ant was going to get better over the course of the series because that's just how Anthony, he's a marvel when it comes to how he recovers from injury. And I don't know how his knee continues to improve. Well, he's still playing. He took, 9 days off after the initial bone bruise and hyperextension. And he already had runner's knee in the other knee. So he's got one knee with runner's knee that he's dealt with for 3 months. The other knee, he's got this hyperextension and bone bruise that they initially said it was a multiple-week injury, and yet he's progressively looked better and better. He played 25 minutes in the first 2 games of the series, came off the bench, played 40 each of the last 2, and now we're going from seeing 0 burst and 0 lift to 5 to 7 times a game where you can tell he's decided, I'm going to go for this block, I'm going to elevate when I get to the rim, I'm going to pull off the spin move at full speed. But he's also doing some crafty below the rim stuff, some crafty Luka Doncic-ish, for a guy who's not using athleticism but being crafty with the ball, using different maneuvers, playing in the post a little bit. Some of that stuff you're seeing more of, and he's doing a little bit of both now. He's mixing in some of that athleticism. So I think that's the key. If Ant continues to get better, the Wolves have a real chance to win 2 out of 3 in this series. If he, kind of levels off and has, a couple of bad games here or there or whatever, Wemby, to this point has still been the best player on the floor. He had the Game 3 performance was insane. The Wolves did a pretty good job defensively, but he just there's only so much you can do to slow him down. And I think, Game 1, Wemby started out great, but then kind of was visibly exhausted by the end, and the Wolves are being physical with him. So I think that's the key. Increase the physicality as much as possible and hope that the moment becomes too big for an inexperienced team. And the Wolves have been to the conference finals 2 straight years, so they're no stranger to big games. And I think they're not going to be intimidated going into San Antonio. So just continue to be physical with Wemby. You're only going to be able to slow him down. You can't stop him. And then as long as it continues to improve physically, I think it gives him a shot.
Ben, obviously you're talking to an audience that understands the nuance of the game of Rudy Gobert, having watched it for so long. Sure. And Rudy was so good against the Nuggets. I hate to use the word dominant, but he was really, really good and did a great job against Jokic. I'm curious, on the big picture, how do the Wolves, the team, the fans, everybody, how do they feel about Rudy now that we're several years away from the trade?
Yeah. People love Rudy Gobert. He's a teammate's teammate. The players love him. The fans love him. He plays hard all the time, genuinely cares. And you do really have to watch him every day. I think nuance is a great word to understand just how impactful he is. Really, especially at the defensive end of the court. And he's gotten, I know the numbers are down scoring wise, not that they were ever crazy, but he had some pretty decent, 14, 15, I think even a 16 point per game season in Utah. The volume is down and the scoring is down, but he's actually, I think, in the last couple of years started to look a little more confident with the ball in his hands offensively, and teammates have started to trust him. And there's, some guys on the team more than others who are really good at feeding him the ball around the basket. But I think the screen assist thing is real. He's one of the NBA's best screeners. He's great at it. The defensive impact is real. Even if there's been moments where you wonder, hey, has he slowed down a half step? And then you realize, oh no, he's fine. What he did in the first round against Denver was crazy. You go back and look at how many minutes he playing against arguably the best player in the world, certainly the best offensive player of the last 3 to 5 years in the NBA, Nikola Jokic. And he was just straight up playing him one-on-one and playing 38 minutes a game and blocking his shot and just getting in his head. And it's just amazing. And a lot of it doesn't show up in the box score. I talked about this on today's Lockdown Wolves show as well, but he had some plays down the stretch defensively that we're just, Wemby has a ton of these obviously as well, but call them neverminds. The guys are driving to the rim and they're like, oh no, wait, Rudy's there, and then they back it back out. That doesn't show up in the box score, but that's the sort of thing where it completely changes the complexion of the opposing offense. And Wemby obviously has that same impact, and the Wolves are seeing that too. So it's funny seeing it on both ends of the floor. And obviously guarding Wemby one-on-one is just a losing proposition. And if Wemby plays within himself and gets the spot he wants to get to, he can have success regardless of who's guarding him. But Rudy's impact is undeniable, and I would defend that trade, like all day long. I think what the Wolves are trying to do is try to find a floor for their team, and Rudy Gobert is a walking top 10 defense. I think once in his career with Utah, he played, real minutes and was not on a team with a top 10 defense. Like, he's a walking top 10 defense. And there's a reason the Wolves did that trade, because he was a guy who had been there. He'd played in the playoffs. He raises the floor of the team. He knows how to be a professional. He takes care of his body. He tries to impart that on the younger Timberwolves players. And he's had a real impact on raising the floor of this team. And I think he's been great in the playoffs by and large, too. I mean, even last year, if the Wolves are fortunate enough to get past the Spurs and take on very likely OKC in the conference final again, Gobert's on-off numbers in that series against the Thunder last year were great. But for some reason, Chris Finch decided to try and play small against the Thunder, and I don't think played Rudy quite enough. So I'd be interested to see if that rematch happens, if Rudy does play more than he did last year in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, Wolves fans love Rudy Gobert. He's a phenomenal player. He's a good guy, and he's a huge part of what this team has done the last few years.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
The Timberwolves are 2 wins away from their 3rd straight conference finals. Is there a secret sauce beyond Anthony Edwards as a top 10 player in the NBA?
I mean, I would tell you Rudy Gobert is the other reason, right? Like Ant's a top. I think before the season I had Ant and Wemby 5-6 in the NBA in terms of the league's best players. I'd probably flip them now. I'd probably put Wemby a slot ahead of Ant. But and I guess that was that's not including Jason Tatum. Anyway, yeah, they're both top 6 players. And yeah, I think Ant's continuing to improve. I think the internal development of Jaden McDaniels, he would be the other one. Reportedly, you guys might remember back at the time of the Rudy trade, Utah reportedly wanted Jaden McDaniels, and the Wolves said, nope, we'll give you another pick instead of Jaden McDaniels, maybe even 2 other picks. We don't know, but that was the sticking point, was the compensation, their picks or Jaden. And it took McDaniels a little bit. He's made one all-defensive second team. He should have been on it again this year. But I would say the development of McDaniels and Anthony Edwards, and to a lesser extent Naz Reid as well, who's also a homegrown guy, and then Rudy Gobert raising the floor of the entire team. And now Tim Connolly's done work around the edges, right? Like initially it was the Mike Conley trade, and then it was more recently the Ayo Dosunmu trade this year at the deadline. And, Kyle Anderson, free agent signing, and now he's back as kind of a fringe rotation guy. So Tim Connolly's an incredible executive, and it's Anthony Edwards, right? Like, he's the focal point, but the internal development of some of these other guys, and that all combined together makes this like a perennial contender. And every year people are like, they might get this, the 7 seed or whatever. And then of course the last couple of years they've been the 6 seed and gone, last year the conference finals, and this year at least the second round. So the regular season success has been a little underwhelming, but by and large this team flips the switch in the playoffs, and that's a credit to Ant. It's a credit to Chris Finch, the head coach. And yeah, I don't know that I would say there's a secret sauce. I think it's finding the superstars, obviously the first hurdle, but then also those ancillary stars that will keep getting better along that same timeline. And so Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid being the 2 biggest ones, and then finding that professional other star like a Rudy Gobert. And obviously they've done it with Karl Anthony Towns, and then they did it with Julius Randle. They've been to a conference finals with each of those guys, and that's a whole other conversation. But you need that other secondary scorer, and the Wolves have found two guys that complement Ant's game really well, and it's worked out and hopefully continues to work out here in the final 3 games of the series against the Spurs.
What are the early returns on the new ownership group?
Yeah, I mean, so far so good. They passed their first test, which was getting Kevin Garnett back in the building. He was there for, I think, the regular season finale, and they're going to retire his jersey next year. It hasn't happened because of the feud between Garnett and the previous owner. It's crazy. The Celtics retired his jersey, 5 years ago or something, and 3 years ago. But he hasn't had it in Minnesota because of that. So that was the first thing. Now it's figuring out, there's arena talks down the road, there's media deals, all that stuff. But the biggest thing is Garnett, and then secondarily Tim Connolly, who I don't think has an opt-out this summer. But other teams, Dallas was reportedly interested in him before they hired Masai Ujiri. There's other teams that are going to be interested in Tim Connolly, but it's keeping him in Minnesota long-term. And they've shown that they're willing to do those things. They've shown that they're willing to be present, and they want to, push the right buttons, pull the right levers, and that's the biggest thing. Fans just want to see that commitment. Fans just want to see that they put their money where their mouth is, and the players seem to like them. So it's so far so good, and I think that there's a lot more coming in terms of down the road, some of the business side of things. But they've been willing. They were, even though they were minority owners at the time, they signed off on the Gobert trade. I mean, they were the ones that Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez pushed on the Gobert trade, and they signed off on it very quickly. Tim Connolly had only been on his job a couple of months, but they saw an opportunity to bring in an all-star center to complement a young superstar, and they went ahead and did that. So, so far so good for those guys.
Well, Ben, thank you very much for a few minutes. We really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the series. Should be a good one.
Great stuff, Ben.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Ben. Ben Beecken, Locked On Timberwolves, as that series is now tied up at 2 apiece.
His recognition of what Rudy does, which is just he sets a floor for who you are as a team, and he sets that floor so high because he's so good defensively that it allows your stars to be stars. It's allowed Anthony Edwards to do all the other things that he does well, in addition to being a good defensive player. It's really made life easier for everybody. It's why those guys have a ton of value, and it's why, as the Jazz are looking at Walker Kessler, Walker is not Rudy Gobert defensively, not even close. Rudy has a real argument to be the greatest defensive player of all time, certainly the most highly decorated. But having a guy who fixes those problems is the reason Boston didn't get out of the first round against Joel Embiid. It's why Indiana paid a top 5 pick to get Zubats. Having a real 5 on your team solves some problems, even if they're not the sexiest, position or player traditionally.
What do you think about the justification that Ben mentioned, and he just mentioned it coming from the league, that Wemby did not get suspended because of reputation?
I think that definitely happens.
Garbage.
Yeah, totally fair.
I just saw a tweet that said if Lou Dort would have done that, he would have gotten 20 years in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Wemby looked at Naz Reid, took his elbow, put it right into Naz Reid's chin with vengeance.
Yeah, could have really hurt him.
At least Karl Malone looked the other way.
And flailed while he did it.
What do I care if he... And by the way, should we tell Adam that his bodyguard beat up Britney Spears? Because this is not...
an isolated incident. I'm totally with you. Now, look, John Stockton probably could have gotten fined $100,000 for his dirty play throughout his career. Every former player says John Stockton was the single dirtiest player I've ever played against, but his reputation didn't allow him to be fined in that sense.
Ridiculous. That was not a dirty play. What Wemby did is not a dirty play.
Correct.
What Wemby did is a dangerous play.
Yes.
When Hakeem Olajuwon punched Billy Pultz, that was not a dirty play. When Zaza Pachulia slid under Kawhi Leonard, that was a dirty play. When the Clinic got wrapped up with Kevin Love, that was a dirty play.
I thought you were going to talk about when he speared
Jordan Poole.
when he speared in the back.
Jordan Poole. When he speared
that
Jordan
was just
Poole,
a dirty play, actually.
That was a dirty play.
Yeah.
What Wemby did was not a dirty play. What Wemby did was a violent act.
Mm-hmm.
To call it dirty is doing a disservice to the dirty players out there that work so hard to keep it on the down low. I don't understand how he was not suspended.
Not even getting a fine is surprising to me, for sure. $50,000? A, he's got the money. B, he deserved it.
He should be suspended, and the Spurs should lose.
Yeah.
You should learn a lesson for doing that. I think.
I think that's totally
solved, brother.
Exactly.
I think that's totally fair.
Audio Vault's coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
When equipment breaks down and operations come to a halt, every single second counts. So why is your maintenance team spending 60% of their time doing anything but turning wrenches? MaintainX is the AI-powered maintenance and asset management system that helps your team get back to actually fixing breakdowns. No more searching for manuals. No more hunting down parts. No more drowning in paperwork. With MaintainX, your team can access manuals from anywhere, create new procedures in minutes, and turn voice notes into clear and complete work order feedback. What used to take hours now only takes minutes. Keep your operations moving and your wrenches turning. Join over 13,000 maintenance teams that are already fixing more and filing less. Try MaintainX for free today. Go to maintainx.com/AI. That's maintain and the letter X.com/AI.